Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jo Salmons. I'm an artist and a professional art doll maker. Every week I make something new and I show you a little bit of my process. Most of my dolls take anything from 30 to 70 hours, sometimes even more than that depending on the doll. So you can imagine how much editing I have to do to get all that footage into a few minutes to show you. This week I'll be showing you the making of my version of Coraline. So without further ado, let's begin. So these are the two inspiration photos I'm using. I love Coraline's expression here as she's frowning, and I thought it would lend itself well to my trademark Dalmato doll's heavy brow. I'm doing a different body style for this doll and I haven't tried it before, so I don't really know how it'll go. I used one of my other doll templates to gauge the size of the armature. I bend and twist the wire for what seems an eternity until finally I have the shape I want. So much twisting. When the armature is finished, I cover it in a layer of electrician's tape. This just gives the wire a layer of protection. I then wrap the armature in strips of wadding to build up the body. To start with, I wanted Coraline to have stripy tights and a skirt, so I used stripy fabric for the legs and flesh coloured fabric for the upper body and arms. I then set about making Coraline's yellow coat. I first make a rough sketch of the shape and size, then I make a proper pattern. I use photos of coat patterns on Pinterest to help me out with how to make the hood part. I rarely make complete garments, and I've never made a coat before, so this was a first, and it was lined and everything, so I was well pleased with myself when it actually turned out looking like a coat. I wasn't sure at this point whether I was going to leave the coat open or stitch it closed, so I made a little tank top from small fabric just in case I did leave the coat open. I didn't like the stripy tights, so I decided to make some jeans instead. Luckily I had a small offcut of denim from some old jeans, which was perfect. Because I'm rubbish at designing anything or making a solid plan before I begin, I'm usually flying by the seat of my pants when partaking in these doll making shenanigans, so things can change throughout, and they often do. I decided to stitch the coat closed in the end. I thought it looked better that way. I then start making the wellies out of air dry clay. I usually use Das clay for the doll feet as it's heavier than other air dry clays when it dries. When the boots are dry, I drill holes into them. I then make the holes bigger using a craft knife. When the boots are all sanded and primed, I paint them yellow and seal them with varnish. I then create the sole by gluing black foam to the bottoms. I decided to make Coraline's hands out of polymer clay as I wanted to be able to insert the arm wire into them without worrying about the clay crumbling. I wanted Coraline to be holding a dowsing rod, so once her hand was sculpted, I wrapped the fingers around some wire before baking. I then started to make the dowsing rod out of wire. I wrapped the wire with masking tape and covered in layers of tissue paper and PVA glue. When that was dry, I used brown, black and green paints to make it look stick coloured. I then varnished with matte varnish. I used strong glue to attach the boots to the legs and the hands to the arms. I almost forgot the blue nail varnish. Next I used chalk pastels to add a bit of shading to the coat and boots as they looked a bit too pristine. I then start making the head. I previously made a mould so that I can create blank faces to sculpt onto. I really hate the process of balling up foil and trying to get the right shape and adding clay to it, so I came up with this idea which speeds the whole process up. I put a layer of clay into the mould and then dry it out in the oven on a low heat. When it comes out, I have to make the eye sockets for the buttons to fit into. I then put the buttons in place and start sculpting the features. Now, I didn't have enough of my usual creative paper clay for this doll, and I couldn't get hold of any under £17 a pack, so I bought some Le Doll Premier instead. I used to use Le Doll all the time before finding creative paper clay. Now, I don't know if I got a dodgy pack or something, but it was literally like trying to sculpt with cream cheese. I do not remember it being like that before, so I don't know if it was a dodgy pack. It was an absolute nightmare. It took me so much longer to sculpt the features. In the end, I had to scrape the nose off as I just I couldn't get it right, and use the tiny little bit of my other clay that I had left so I could actually get the nose and mouth sculpted. I was so annoyed. By the way, I'm not sponsored by either of these brands, it's just stuff that I use. When the face is finally finished and has dried out, I make the back of the head. I lightly ball up some foil which I place into the back of the face. I cover this in foam clay to give it a nice smooth finish for the air dry clay to be applied to. When the foam clay has dried out, I cover it in a layer of PVA glue and add the air dry clay. I then smooth out the back of the head and make sure it's attached securely to the face. At this point, I realise she needs some big ears, so I use some thin wire which I fashion into ear shapes and push into the two holes that I've made in either side of the face. I cover the wire in a small amount of masking tape and add a little bit of glue for the clay to stick to. I then add the clay and sculpt the ears. I then build up Coraline's head at the sides with extra clay so that when I add the hair, I'll be able to get it into the right shape and style. Once the head is completely dry, I drill a hole for the neck. I make the hole the right size to fit the neck and then smooth out the inside with clay. This will ensure a good fit around the neck once it has been inserted. The head is primed and then painted with flesh coloured acrylic paint. I suppress my clumsy inner self with all my might while I carefully paint the little thin lips. I then shade the face with chalk pastels to bring her to life. I use watercolour pencils to add the freckles and eyebrows. The eyes are protected with a layer of blue tack before spraying the face with varnish. I paint the head blue where the hair will be, then when the paint has dried I start adding the wool. Really thought I would hate this part, but I really enjoyed it for some reason. It was quite satisfying. I applied the strands of wool in layers, painting each layer with a watered down PVA glue mixture in between. I wanted the hair to be quite solid and stay in place. When the hair is all dry, I cut it into an A-line bob. I use strong glue to attach the head to the body. The last thing to do is to add Coraline's dragonfly hair clip, and she is complete. Here she is, the finished doll. I really hope you enjoyed watching me make Coraline. She's the first button-eyed doll that I've made and I'm really pleased how she turned out. Making the little coat was really daunting, but I managed to do it and it turned out good. I love the Coraline film and I really like making button-eyed dolls now, so you might see quite a few more in my shop from now on. What do you think? Is she a good version of Coraline? Do you like her? Let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more photos of Coraline or if you want to see any of my other creations, then please go to my Facebook, Instagram and TikTok accounts and follow me there. And if you want to buy any of my creations, visit my online shop. All the links are down below. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'll be back next week with another video. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.